Hey, welcome to Caching in the Northwest. You know, this is the podcast about geocaching from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're trying to figure out how to remove a 41-foot whale from a beach, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
I know the residents of Florence, Oregon know what not to do. But,
oh man, that's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, because, you know, that blasted blubber beyond all believable bounds.
That is such a good line.
Tonight, though, we're not talking about whales. We're talking about caching on a budget. Maybe you don't have a whale of a wallet. Maybe you just have a little tiny minnow of a wallet, and you need a budget your geocaching outings. We're going to talk about it and see what we can learn. I'm excited about it. And of course, I want to hear what the audience has to say, because it's just, I don't know. Could we wouldn't do it without them. I don't want to talk to just you two guys. I want to hear what the chat has to say. Speaking of you two guys, there's a third one of us, and I got to bring him in here. I don't know what to say about him. My mind's blank tonight.
He's back like a pesky rash.
Ooh.
And others say
he is the reason geocaching has a dress code. No?
I love it.
All we know is he's called Land Monkey, and we're glad he's here.
Awesome. This is, again, one of those evenings where, you know, if somebody was a fly in the wall in the electronic studios, they would have a little more insight into what's going on. But it's kind of fun just to have a little inside joke, too. So
that's true. I'm really glad we have a podcast tonight, because I wasn't sure, you know, up till, I don't know, 20 minutes ago that it was going to happen for me. So
there you go. More mystery and excitement. Mm-hmm. Always lots of that. Indeed. Well, hey, speaking of excitement, I'm excited to be able to share how much we appreciate the support of our patrons who keep this podcast coming each and every week. Special thanks to Land Sharks, one of our corporate Denali level sponsors. Now, folks, we're going to be talking about geocaching on the cheap, geocaching on a budget. But, you know, if you're saving up those pennies, you might want to be investing it in a travel adventure. So nice. Why not check out travel.landsharks.ca. They've got a whole lot of great trips listed under upcoming trips, including a tour to the Brazil Ape Cache.
Oh,
that's pretty cool. Followed by a Panama Canal cruise. Wow, that's pretty
on the same
neat.
trip.
On the same trip.
Wow.
Now and it's optional apparently. If you read through it, it's got all the details in there.
Clothing is optional.
Lots of things are optional.
Mm-hmm.
Kinda, yeah. And geocaching is free.
That's right.
Right.
I've heard that somewhere.
But folks, I'll tell you what, if you want to check out all of that, head over to landsharkz.ca and just put the word travel with a dot in front of that, and it'll take you directly to their travel website. You can see all the upcoming options and awesome travel adventures coming there with Land Sharks. And folks, let us not also forget about our other corporate Denali level sponsor. That would be Gold Country Geotourism. Visit exploregoldcountry.com, learn more about the geotours of the region, download the app, plan your adventures in Gold Country, because, folks, the snow's starting to recede. It's time to get out there and explore and have fun. And, you know, just anybody else, if you want to know more about supporting this show, well, head on over and click that Patreon link on the CachingNW.com a website.
The Patreon link. The receding snow line, just like my hairline.
Right?
Right. Indeed. But now, before we talk more about hair and how to save it, no, we're not talking about saving hair. We're talking about saving money. We want you to do something. Hey, wait, let me take off this logo that's covering my face.
Take it all off.
Actually, it's the best my face has looked in years. We want you to do something else that's free. we want you to send in a glow. Now, sometimes I'll ask, what is a glow?
What is a glow?
Thank you.
Oh, he said sometimes he'd ask. I didn't know we were supposed to.
Oh,
You
okay.
just never know.
I was kind of trying to watch Jim and see how we were going to play it tonight. And you're really doing a good poker face. So I just jumped in.
Ma.
Exactly.
Oh, the glow is the geocaching log of the week. It's whether you read it or whether you wrote it, we want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. You can send an email as RAR285 did, or even better, you could send a recording to feedback@cachingnw.com. You can call into 253-693-TFTC. Show us how you glow. A healthy glow.
A healthy glow. And as you mentioned, tonight's glow was sent in from RAR285, who said, let's see, is it his log or is it found by, the cache was found by librarian was here.
Is that
Anyway.
librarian? It almost says librarian. That threw me off.
I didn't say librarian. I said librarian. Because that's what it says here.
Librarian?
Librarian. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
It's, it's not librarian. It's different altogether. But anyway, whoever sent it in and whoever wrote it, it makes geocaching better. And it reads, I discovered this amazing cache when doing a county run a few months ago. The final is a 4-room escape room that the cache owner built by connecting a garage and storage shed. Super creepy and super challenging, and the coolest cache I've ever seen. I didn't have to complete it, planning on returning in March, but I have it on my watch list. I saw this log and figured I'd send it in. So that was what RAR25 said. Pardon my error there. Here is what the actual log read. After gathering the necessary information, we were ready to face Georgie. In DT Charlie's case, she was ready for round 2 with the new additions. DT Charlie and I dove right in while Video Ninja Warrior kept an eye on the door, just in case Georgie wanted to sneak up from behind. We made impressively quick work of the first room and took the time to put everything back in place before moving on to the next. The less time we had to spend remembering where everything went, the less time Georgie had to find us. Room 2 gave us a bit more trouble. Even though we brought a certain tool with us, we were worried it wouldn't be enough. Luckily, Georgie had given us a break and provided one for us. Unluckily, due to the temperature, the majority of it was not in the correct physical state. Luckily, we had just enough to get us what we needed for the next step. Putting everything back took us longer than the first room due to a hilarious error on my part, and we had to hurry. We could feel the effects of the virus taking hold. Room 3's biggest challenge was figuring out where to start and figuring out a code with dimming flashlights. But we figured out the puzzles and had the antidote in hand soon enough. Woohoo, we were saved! Now to face Georgie's biggest puzzle of all and earn our smiley. The biggest setback with room 4 was that the first step didn't work for us. However, it seemed Georgie was prepared for this hiccup and provided a rather complicated but doable second option to get started. Soon we were figuring out the puzzles and clue to this room as well. Oh, what a relief it was to finally have our hands on that fabulous logbook. Maybe next time, Georgie. Total time was just under an hour, 30 minutes, and it was totally worth it. This was an amazing cache, and the effort that went into it is well appreciated. DT Charlie loved the updates. Video Ninja Warrior, when he wasn't looking out for a jump scare around every corner, enjoyed his first escape room. Thanks for the awesome cache.
Wow.
An hour and 30 minutes in 4 escape rooms.
Yeah,
Once you get to ground zero, that's totally worth it.
I'd take an hour and 30 minutes to find, a simple ammo can in the woods, but
there's no GC code for this.
Oh, yeah, you have to solve a different puzzle to get the GC code.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I want to find out more about this one. We need to get the GC code on this.
if Mr. 285 is listening tonight,
Yeah,
maybe he can
perhaps I can
help
put
us
it in
out
there.
with this.
Or you can go search the logs of librarian was here and
Might be easier if someone
And-
sends us the GC.
and DT
code.
Charlie.
Just saying.
There you go. I copied the name into the chat there, in case anybody wanted to.
Do some research.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that was quite a cache, though. That's
Yeah. Sounds like a
some-
destination cache.
I know some
Yeah.
caches are more creative and involved than others, but that one, somebody really put a lot
Mhm.
into that.
From the sounds of things, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'd be willing to give up a garage for,
Right.
multiple escape rooms
Right.
or a cache. A shed? Yeah, I'd give up a shed. Oh, anyway. Hey, folks, if you want to chime in with your best budgeting geocaching trip tips, use the hashtag budget for tonight's show, and you might have to use it a time or two. Our chat lackey is on vacation. So we are on our own, and we have fallen out of practice. Let's just admit it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with that going on, you can also use hashtag FATAS to bring up something for the after show. And of course, we have podcast or hashtag podcast baking and hashtag podcast drinking to let us know what you're eating and drinking tonight. Now, along with all that, use those sparingly because we have to keep up with it while we're talking. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Toss it in there all you want.
We'll do our best. All right. Well, while we're doing our best, we'll also bring you a little bit of news. It's that time of year again. No fooling. It is April, and every spring the state parks blossom with flowers. The snow recedes eventually, and they also blossom with fun educational events to intrigue and entertain you and your family and friends. If you got to go to Washington State Parks, or if you want to go to Washington State Parks, you need a Discover Pass. Well, I'll tell you what, Earth Day is coming Saturday, April 22nd, and it is a Discover Pass free day. So it's the one day. I think there's usually a handful of days through the year, very few, but one of them is April 22nd, Earth Day. So you can get into any of the state parks without your Discover Pass, without having to get a Discover Pass. So what are some things going on? Well, let me tell you, folks. In Fort Flagler, there is Scotch broom removal. That sounds like a Ceto-ish kind of thing.
These are all kind of Ceto-ish. Well, I
Yeah.
guess not.
It's not all of them, but some of them are definitely.
Yeah, Scotch broom is an invasive species for sure.
Yeah.
The one which my wife is highly allergic.
Oh, is she? When it blooms? Oh, yeah. Kitsap Memorial State Park, guided native plant walk. That sounds interesting and informative.
It's nice when the native plants take a walk.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see. Squack Mountain State Park, there's a fun run. The Columbia Plateau Trail, there's an ADA friendly guided walk. ADA?
Assistant District Attorney.
That's what I'm like.
It's the Americans with Disabilities Act. So
Okay.
it's a handicap accessible, although I'm sure handicap accessible is probably not a correct term, and somebody
Or
will
we could
be
say
offended.
accessible guided walk. There we go.
There you go.
All right. Thank you for explaining that acronym to me. Because I was thinking what Chris said. It's like, I'm pretty sure this isn't just restricted to assistant district attorneys, but
Ada is also a city in Michigan.
Oh,
there you
yes,
go.
it is.
Very cool. Bridal Trails, there's a stewardship project. Ooh, that sounds very mysterious and official. Dash Point State Park, Sundays outside, and not Sundays with a Y, Sundays with an E, like the kind you eat. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Sound much more delicious.
That does. So Dash Point Park. Oh, there's multiple things there. Dash Point State Park, Sundays outside, a celebration of Black folks. What?
That's what was on the webpage.
I'm confused.
I am too.
But
You
Dash
we
Point-
can register.
I was going to
You
say
know what?
Dash Point is right there in Tacoma, so it's
Oh,
close
yeah.
close to town.
Nice.
You don't have to drive out, into distant rural areas. If you live right there in the Seattle Tacoma area, it's that one's in town. So yeah, that might be a good one to bookmark.
February is Black History Month.
Right.
Not that you can't celebrate Black History any month, but it's a little confusing. Sundays outside, a celebration of Black folks. Okay. Well, now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to go check this out, see what that is. But they say to register there on their website, or join the multi-park Washington Coast cleanup. There you go. Last but not least, Lake Sammamish. I love that word. They'll host their annual Walk and Wag May 7th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That sounds like take your doggy is what that sounds like.
I hope it is.
Or people who walk funny.
Our
was
research
gonna say,
department is just knocking things out here.
Hey, Mr.
So
Simmel.
there's the code for the glow, and librarian was here is the proper.
So there was a
thing. So-
typo. Okay.
I had a hunch it was, but it was just fun to say librarian.
But you know,
Conan the librarian.
at the same time, you know, people have odd usernames
This
because
is true.
perhaps they made a misspelling
Right.
and then they just carried it on.
Then they're stuck with it. Yeah.
We're making Keats hungry. He
Yeah,
goes
I
like
know.
sandwich.
I always call it that. There's a couple of lakes with similar names, different amounts of syllables, but
Mhm.
spelled very similarly in Western Washington there. Sammamish, Samish, Sandwich.
Sandwich.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you, Mr. Semmel, Mr. Jones, and Quads.
And Miss Tribe
Oh, what's up?
is in Seebeck Tribe, says Kitsap Memorial State Park is only 25 minutes away. And there's a CETO there in Port Gamble on April
there you go.
22nd.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There you go.
I remember last fall I went out and got a cache on a Discover Pass free day. I'd been wanting to get into this local state park, and I don't have a Discovery Pass currently. I usually do, but I didn't have one. And I thought, let's go on this Saturday. It was free, so it was great.
Yeah.
All right. Other news comes to us from the GCHQ blog. It says each day, hidden technologies around the world help shape our work, our play, and our futures. And as we all know and love, GPS revolutionized precise location information and enabled geocaching itself. It existed for a long time, but it was locked down and restricted to just military and government types. But on May 2nd of 2000, the U.S. government flipped the switch. It's a big blue switch. I'm sure it was actually a physical big blue switch because that's what I choose to believe.
Yeah.
But that turned off selective availability and made the high precision GPS we know and love today available to all of us commoners.
And I think whenever I'm out looking for a cache, they turn that switch off.
Oh,
Because,
I,
you know, it's
I've
nowhere
asked them
near
for that.
Or just just keep doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
300 feet away. Nope, it's
Yeah.
right here. No, it's 200 feet that way.
We call it
Psych.
Big Blue Switch Day or Blue Switch Day. And this year, Geocaching HQ is launching a new souvenir to celebrate it
Nice.
and the innovators who made it possible. So they are highlighting a GPS pioneer. Gladys West worked for the U.S. Navy to develop accurate models of the Earth for satellites, was instrumental in the accuracy of GPS, and we are very grateful that Gladys was involved.
Indeed.
Nice.
I learned about Gladys West when I was working on putting together the content for the GPS maze, GPS Adventure Maze.
Ah,
Because we were doing a bunch of research about the history of GPS satellites, of course, for the panels, and found out about her and started reading into it. I thought, wow, that is an amazing woman.
did
So
she have
that
any
was
pips?
Different Gladys,
Well, I know, but I thought maybe like every Gladys came with a set of pips.
perhaps.
Gladys West in the pips, Gladys Knight in the pips. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a Gladys East too.
There must be.
Yeah, she's
I
just
mean,
not
could you get a more perfect name for somebody who's one
Right.
of the founders of GPS technology?
Yes, you could. She could be Gladys Northwest.
Well, here you go.
Well, we don't know her middle name.
Oh,
Also true.
fair enough.
right.
Limax says the geocoin for Big Blue Switch Day is gorgeous this year.
Ooh, I don't think I've taken a look at that one yet. I'll have to check that out.
I prefer Big Blue Switch. They've dropped that a couple of years ago. Maybe
Ah,
they looked at it and go, the Switch isn't all that big. So
it is to us.
That's right.
It'll always be Big
It's
Blue
a
Switch Day to us.
big deal.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yes, go
okay.
ahead.
I'm sorry. I know we've got topics to get to, but this glow was quite interesting. And BC Rockcrawler says the last log on that cache, owner maintenance, looks like Georgie has its own cemetery for his playmates.
Ooh.
So beware next time you could be his playmate.
That sounds very ominous.
That's super creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. All right. Well, while we're talking about souvenirs, Big Blue Switch Day is going to have a souvenir. Folks are working, likely most of the folks on this podcast are working on the Wheel of Challenges souvenirs they're out there. But I've got a question for the hashtag FATAS for our listeners, whether you're a live listener or you know what, if you're listening to this podcast afterwards, this is something I always forget to remind people of. I want to remind you, if you're not listening live, but you're listening at the bus stop, bobbing your head to the theme song, or you're commuting to work, or you're out geocaching on the trail and you got the podcast on because it just takes your mind off of everything because we're that exciting. I want to remind you that you can always on any social medias use hashtag FTAS, because once the show ends, all the rest of time is the after show. So you can respond to anything from the podcast using hashtag FATAS and ideally tag at Caching the Northwest or at Caching NW, and we'll see it and we'll be able to talk about it on the next podcast and share your thoughts. So just because you're not listening live doesn't mean you can't contribute. We'd love to hear from you as well.
We do indeed.
So that's a really good point. Thank you, Land Monkey.
Yeah.
Yes. So hit us up on the socials, email us. You know what? We'll bring up your comment in the next show. So, we can keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I said, if you're listening live, he says, I hope you're not listening dead.
As long as it's an active download, I don't really care.
Yeah. Well, then there you go. You might be one of Georgie's playmates. I don't know. But where I was originally going with that before I got on my soapbox is that with the Wheel of Challenges, we were curious how you're all doing on the Wheel of Challenges. So, tag us, let us know. We're really curious. But here's an interesting question that came up on in my socials, my social medias today. I thought it was a great question. It is, could HQ include a simple visual way to track our progress on these challenges? So they've done that for other souvenir things,
challenges
sure. Previously. That would be kind of a neat idea. So Land Sharks and Just Joey both asked that question in my socials, and I thought that is a really good question. So I thought I would share it with everybody on the podcast world here and see what you think. So let us know. What do you think, listeners? Is that something you think HQ could or should do? Is allow us the ability to track our progress towards those souvenirs?
Apparently Limax is easy, but only 2 away from a medium. And
I have no idea what that means, but yay.
Here you go.
He tosses out, I'm easy, like he's proud of it. I don't know about that one.
Like Sunday morning.
Easy like Sunday morning. Gotcha. GSM times 2. Good to have you back on the chat. I haven't seen you in a while there, GSM times 2. He has 56 finds. So nice. How are you tracking that? Just curious.
Yeah, it's a good question. All right.
One more thing. I know we're jumping all over here, but this is worth showing. Land Sharks is listening to the show. I know. We didn't know they actually listened. No, we know.
We do.
You guys are on here almost every week. We certainly appreciate you. They say we produced the geocoin for the Big Blue Switch this year. It was a joint creation of the HQ Creatives team, art, and our production techniques to make it shine.
Nice.
So there you go. If you buy a Big Blue Switch geocoin from geocaching.com, you're helping the Land Sharks. And I bet they have those geocoins as well.
I was just going to say, I'm going to look this up right now. Landsharks with the Z.ca.
Oh,
Okay.
good one.
Is it on their site?
I've heard that somewhere.
I know, right? Trackables, geocoins.
By the way, you asked how Jason times 2 knows, and Ryan says he has spreadsheets for everything. He did, though, share how he knows. He says if you look at your profile stats, you look at your monthly stats, and then subtract any you got in the first and second. So
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
It's like how many horses or cows are in the field. Well, you just count the legs and divide by 4.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, duh.
All right. I can't find it, but maybe Landsharks will let us know when it's up on their site.
They're not sure,
Not sure if they have them yet. Here you go.
They
Perfect.
took them
Well, hey,
down just
we'll
when you
watch for
started
it.
looking.
So
We'll watch for it.
we're talking about budget geocaching, and I've covered a lot of areas here in the notes.
Hmm.
First, let's talk about gear. Geocaching doesn't require a whole lot in the way of specialized equipment. You can keep increasing and adding that to your heart's content. But to get going, you just need a few essentials like maybe a GPS or a smartphone, right? You don't have to have both. Most people have a smartphone. That's a great way to get started. Some basic hiking gear like comfortable shoes. And if you're urban caching, those can be tennis shoes. You know, as you get going, you go, well, I want to go into the mountains. Well, maybe you need hiking boots. Maybe you need some rain gear. It is the Northwest after all.
We're slipping into a whole nother episode.
I know. I'm trying not to add a whole lot of things, but you can start with mostly the clothes and the gear you have to get going.
Yeah, in fact, I know people that when they first started out, and this was really back before smartphones when you had to have a GPS because it was the only way to get coordinates, but they didn't even have that. I know somebody found their first 100 caches simply by looking at Google Maps or online maps and printing out the cache pages and going out and searching that way. A little more challenging, but they did it.
Yep. So very nice.
Yeah.
Now there are affordable options for GPSs for some secondhand gear at secondhand stores, right? You know, people decide
or online, like Facebook
or online,
Marketplace and all that stuff. Yeah.
So there are some affordable options there if you want to get more gear.
Yeah. But I would say the most cost-effective way to start would be assuming you already have a smartphone and you know, download the official app. That's the free one to use. And you know, it's the old geocaching is free. It starts free.
It does.
I think that's the whole premise of that
free
episode.
Yeah, because there's apps out there for both iOS and Android, and like you say, assuming you already have the smartphone, because if you have to go out and buy a smartphone specifically to geocaching, that's a little more pricey. But once you have the phone, and a lot of people do, there are free apps. There are a lot of paid options. They're paid apps. Some just add features for fee, but you can start out with a free app. Most of those add-ons, by the way, are just a one-time purchase, which is great. I know some apps and some other areas that I've involved with, I can't cough up the money because it's a monthly fee. And I'm like, you know, I'll pay you once, but anyway. Some of those are subscription-based. I'll get off my soapbox about that. But, you know, hey, if you got a birthday coming up, if there's a holiday coming up, you could ask friends and family for gift cards to those app stores, and then you're not out of pocket nothing.
So here's a thought. I'm going to go off script for a moment because
no, we can't.
No, too late. I said I'm going to. I have to now.
We'll blame the chat lackey.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all his fault.
That's right.
Chat lackey walks out the door. That's it. The whole show's off the rails. So I mean, we're talking about geocaching on budget here, and we're talking about there's free apps and even the low cost apps and such, but a lot of the features that you want to use in those apps, unless you're a premium member, those features wouldn't work because they're going in through the back end hooks and trying to use data that you need to have the premium account, the $30 US per year, in order for those features to work in any app. Is that not correct?
Yes. Now, Okay, so I have recently I'm preparing a presentation for my local library. They
Nice.
wanted one on geocaching. And I thought this would be a great time to reacquaint myself with the free version of the official geocaching or app.
Mm-hmm.
So while we were we were doing the cache machine, I thought, you know what? I'm going to pull up this app on my wife's phone, create a new account, sign in, get going, log some caches for her. And I was really disappointed that I could not log a difficulty 2 cache on the free version of the app.
Hmm.
It wanted, to start paying to get access to some of the more difficult caches.
Okay.
I thought, I remember when it would show you the 3 closest caches to you, no matter what they were, unless of course, they were premium.
Right.
So, I don't know. Here's what I want to ask, not just to Land Monkey, but to all of you listening, and perhaps those listening while still alive, and just later. What are your ideas for an entry-level geocaching app? Right? For both platforms, for iOS and for Android.
Like, what
Now,
would people recommend?
right. And I've always
Okay.
recommended the Geocachinger, the official app,
Yeah.
because that is very newbie friendly, right?
Yeah.
It has a lot of pop-up screens. Oh, you're looking for a traditional cache. This is something where there'll be a physical container and a logbook and usually something to write with, right? If there's swag, go ahead and trade and it gives you all that detail, which I think for the new geocacher, that's fantastic, right? Oh, you're coming up on a multi-cache. That means there's going to be multiple steps in this. Oh, that's what a multi-cache means. Okay.
Yeah. I do like that
Mm-hmm.
help feature they have in there. Yeah.
So yes, so that's all in there. And that's what I've always said. But now as I've started to use it, I'm like, it's a little restricting. So I don't
Yeah.
know if over time that they open it up a little bit so you can get the more difficult. I mean, difficulty 2 is not a difficult cache to find, right? One and a
Depends
half
on the
is
day.
that's true. And the cacher.
Yeah.
I don't know if I found it.
I can make the easiest cache difficult.
That's right. That's right.
Challenge
So-
accepted.
Lost Ken says CGO or the official app.
Yeah. CGO is that one kind of rides the line because of how they scrape the back end. I don't think they're an officially endorsed app. But I had used it for years and years before I switched over to what I'm using now. But yeah.
I used it for a long time too and really liked it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I'm curious, as we're all kind of techie, as a non-techie, is CGO easy to use?
Good question.
GSM times 2 says they want to set up for new geocachers to be successful, so they limit them to difficulty. Oh, I completely understand that.
Makes sense.
I,
Yeah.
I understand why they've done that. So Quads in the Mud says, I tell Android users CGO if they're not premium. There are no limits.
Because of they're not using the API.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you, Quads.
Seaback Tribe says I use CGO for Android and Cachly for iPhones. Cachly isn't free. There may be a few days trial. I can't recall.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but
either.
it's
They
so
might be.
darn good. I mean, what is it? $5?
And it's a one time.
I think it's a one time, maybe $6, $5.99.
Something like that. Yeah.
Now, one thing Apple does have is family sharing on apps. So that means once you set up your family, I've gone into my family and said, here are the
I set up my family like 25 years ago.
I know, but you got to do it again on your smartphones.
Oh man.
You can share the purchase of apps across the family if that app supports it. Cachly does support it. It's set up that way. So, you should be able to, and I had troubles doing it on the road that day, going into my wife's account and saying, here, go download Cachly. Nope, you have to pay for it. Well, there should be a way that because she's in the family, it's shared, and I couldn't figure that out. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so I'm just curious on your options for CGO.
Yeah.
GSM times 2 says yes. CGO is simple for non-tech people because it's text based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yep.
Just Carlo says our quote unquote free hobby started free with my phone. Within a week, I paid for premium, secondhand GPS, bought tots, bought containers for hiding. Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Yep. There's a film about that. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to think is budget, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
more than actually geocaching, I want to talk about traveling.
Okay.
Yeah. And traveling typically is not free.
Rarely.
Rarely. You can do traveling on a budget, but before you think about traveling, you can just think about staying local because odds are pretty good no matter where you are. If you're just starting geocaching, you're surrounded by a lot of a lot of geocaches right in your
Possibly
backyard.
GPSs as
Yeah,
well.
you probably are. Yeah, right in your local area, there's going to be a ton of them. Some of the more active caches might have already cleaned out or found all the caches in their local area, which that's the goal, right? Find them all or
Yep.
find as many as you can.
Or if you've been burned a couple of times by HQ's promotions, you leave a handful of local caches just in case.
Yeah.
Too soon, Land Monkey? Too soon?
No. It's a habit for us now. It's like, okay, we're always going to leave within a quick driving radius, just a certain amount, just so we have them. Yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry, Jim, I interrupted.
No, it's good. It's good. And like I said, odds are pretty good that there are a lot of geocaches right in your local area, but perhaps not. Perhaps you live in a very rural area or live in a small town. There's not a lot there. Perhaps you live right against state land reserve, something where there's not geocaches allowed to be. Anyway,
Ocean.
It's possible. Backed up to the ocean. You might, if it's allowed, you're not in a restricted area, go hide some because, well, if nobody hid a cache, we couldn't find a cache, and just expands the game board for everybody to play. And it's fun to be creative and hide your own too, and get to read the logs of other people enjoying finding what you put out there. So, and who knows, maybe somebody else will go, hey, I could do that. That wasn't hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that topic of hiding your own, you don't have to spend a lot of money on necessarily on expensive specialized containers. You may have some appropriate containers at home. That said, please do not use containers that previously had food in them. Often people will go to the dollar store or $1.25 store and see what kind of containers are there. The one thing I would say though, on that note, is as we are in the Pacific Northwest, the dollar store containers will probably do you a year. And then you're probably going to need to replace them. Either the plastic it just doesn't hold up to the elements, or the seal goes and it starts to leak, and then it's just basically a little tiny Barbie pool. So there is a certain advantage at times to, if you are going to spend money, to spend money wisely and maybe look at more high quality containers if the intent is to put something out for an extended period of time. If it's like, yeah, I'm going to have this out for a year and then I'm going to pull it, and then, you're probably fine. But, we get a lot of rain, then we get some cold, then we get some hot, and boy, does that ever do a number on the cheap containers.
Yes, it does.
Anyways, just food for thought. But yes, absolutely, there are less expensive routes to go. Wet Coaster, hashtag budget. Wet Coaster says you might be able to pick up cheap Tupperware if they do go bankrupt. I guess he's been following the news there on financial difficulties with that model. But yeah, I would say that there is an advantage to if, and I think this is sort of our point, right? Like there are ways you can do things more cost effectively, do things on the cheap at times. But often the way I look at it, and I think this is sort of our overall theme, is Ryan Ryan Semmel actually bought a replacement container from the $1.25 store yesterday, so he didn't have to drive home. There you go. Probably saved at least that much in gas.
Probably,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah, Keith says, "Don't get a container that'll quickly produce cash juice." Yeah,
Cash
exactly.
juice.
Ugh. Yeah,
Don't drink this.
yeah, yeah. Don't drink that. So I guess my point being, like, is an overall theme for this episode, though, that it it is great where you can to be on a budget and save money. And I look at it from my perspective, saving the money so that you can spend it on the things you really want to spend it on.
Mhm.
So that's just another way of looking at it.
Now, I want to touch briefly on traveling to caches, and we've got a bunch of comments here in
Oh, yeah, lots.
the show or in the chat. So thank you so much. We do appreciate all the input we get. We try to get to all of it, and if it's repeats, I'll flash them up there real quick so everybody gets credit. But we do our best. Oh well, thank you. Landshark says, if you're enjoying all the hashtag budget caching tips, make sure to give the show a thumbs up and share it with your frugal friends. You can share the podcast absolutely free, and your friends can listen to it absolutely free on their very expensive smartphone
What?
and
This
or
is
laptop
free?
or computer. Yes, well, it is for everyone else. It's not for the people on this side of the microphone. Out there, you can get it for
Yeah.
free. If you're going to travel, try to find a good concentration of caches, right? That'll allow you to park the car and walk from cache to cache, right? So you're doing a little travel and then you walk a little bit. There are some very popular parks and trails with very high cache density that will fit that bill very nicely.
That's definitely an option. Sometimes, but it depends what kind of caching you're doing, right? If you're just out for the day and or a road trip and that's the idea, absolutely, it makes a lot of sense to do that. Try and minimize your amount of routing around. But it could be that you're needing to route around because you're trying to target specific caches, either high favorite points or DT combos because you're working on your fizzy,
Right.
or oldies because you're working on your Jasmer. Like there's all kinds of reasons that you might not do that, but it's a good tip for sure. Wet Coaster, I love this one. Yes, I've done this also. Wet Coaster says, make use of business trips to get free geocaching away from home. Have somebody else pick up the bill for your transit. And
that's the way I've seen 90%, 95% of the travel I've done is, do it
on
the
somebody else's dime.
Yeah, I can't afford to travel on my own.
I almost included that in the show notes, and I thought, no, that shouldn't do that. Going back to budget and secondhand gear, Limax says, I bought my first GPS. It's a Magellan 310 on eBay. It's the only way I could afford to get started. It was cheaper because it was quote unquote non-working.
Until he bought it and fixed it, I bet.
Right.
Very cool.
Change the batteries.
Clean the white stuff off the battery contacts. There you go. So we're talking about traveling to caches. I saw this come up earlier in the chat, this same suggestion, Chris, that you had put into the show notes. So great minds think alike. Yeah, it was Dora Moore. There you go. Dora Moore says, I like to travel with friends and split the costs for gas, food, accommodation, etc. And carpooling was the next item we had on here. A great way to share the expenses and have a fun day out with your friends. I think I also saw this in the official geocaching blog. There was a blog article, an interview with Annie Love, and she was talking about some of her pro tips for caching. And one of them was carpooling and going out caching with some friends. So there you go. Just, it seems to be a theme today, but definitely things that make it a little less expensive is obviously the most obvious one that comes to mind is the shared gas expense. One of the biggest advantages to carpooling is reducing the per person cost of the gas. I have friends who actually, speaking of spreadsheets, as was mentioned earlier, who do the math on the cost per cache on a road trip.
Oh,
So,
nice.
so that's kind of fun. But yeah, sharing the expense of the gas amongst multiple people, everyone saves a little bit of money on the transportation costs. And obviously, especially beneficial if you're traveling long distances to reach your destination, or if you're out doing a power trail, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go.
Right.
That's really efficient for gas,
Yeah.
for
Not.
gas consumption. It's a
Yeah.
very
Oh,
efficient
yes.
way
Yeah.
to consume more gas.
Um,
The reduced wear and tear on vehicles, I guess, in theory, on everybody else's vehicles, except for the one person who's doing
right.
the carpooling.
Doing the start, stop stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that person. More environmentally friendly. I guess because you're carpooling, so you're fewer vehicles on the road. I'll go with that. And then I think honestly, the biggest advantage in my eyes is the opportunity for socializing.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be in the vehicle together for some time traveling, having fun, swapping stories, tips,
Time travel?
strategies.
Yeah.
Sorry,
You said time traveling.
did
Yeah,
I say time traveling?
88 miles an hour.
Ah, okay. There you go. Time traveling and
You can
carpooling.
spend some time traveling.
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, is that what I said? Okay. Fair enough. There you go. Cruise control helps mileage, Keats 94 says. He'll be doing this through the middle of Canada a lot. It's pretty easy to do through the middle of Canada because it's mostly straight and level. So,
Yeah. And learn to hypermile.
Sorry, which?
Hypermiling.
I don't know what that is.
Where you barely press the accelerator. So, you don't accelerate or decelerate quickly, and you can really get some good mileage.
Yeah. Or if you happen to have a hybrid vehicle, then that kind of travel definitely works well. That's one of the things I like in the Jeep I really love going downhill in the Jeep when it turns off the gas engine. It's great.
Isn't that great? Heather has thrown out some good things. One of them, my geocaching bag is a fishing bag that I got from my local Buy Nothing group. I also get swag this way. So there you go. Get into a social media group, usually Facebook, something like that. And, they're like, hey, I've got this. Does anybody want it?
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Landsharks is an expert on the local Buy Nothing groups. I got to say, I have been impressed at the way that she moves stuff in and out of the house using those Facebook groups. It's pretty impressive. So Victoria apparently has a very good Buy Nothing group going on there. But yeah, thank you, Heather. That's a great tip. Great tip. So yeah. So was there anything else? I have to scroll down on the page now. I haven't. Oh, there was one more. Increased safety. Now this is interesting because I don't know if I agree with this one. Now the comment is here in the notes that carpooling can be safer than driving alone. By traveling with others, you reduce the risk of accidents and provide assistance in case of emergencies. I kind of buy that. I think reduce the risk of accidents because you can help keep the driver awake.
And less distracted, right? You can have somebody sitting next to the driver to do all the navigation.
Okay. All right.
Right. So the driver can stay focused, because if you're doing it on your own, you've got to navigate to the next location and make changes along the way. If anything happens, you could have somebody sitting next to the driver in the shotgun seat there to do all the navigation. I think it's safer.
I'll buy into that. As a frequent back road traveler, I would suggest 2 vehicles is a much safer way to travel.
Yes.
Because if something happens to the one vehicle, you have a second vehicle to get out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear what they're saying, and I would say carpool with 2 vehicles. So have multiple people, like, well, there's 6 of us going, 3 in each vehicle, right? Like, I think there's ways to do that. And again, I guess to your point, it just depends where you're going,
right,
what the scenario is, etc. But yeah, okay. I see the point now that you were making with that.
Wow. I can't believe we're at the 50-minute mark.
Oh, I wasn't watching the time.
And
right.
I mean, it's just like, holy cow. So we might just have to breeze through some of these quickly.
Let's do it.
Yeah. CBC Rock Crawler's budget public transit when available. And I was going to say,
Mhm.
taking public transport is another good budget saving option, especially if some people already have a company issued
Mhm.
transit card for your commutes and things, and you can travel on that. It can be more environmentally friendly, like we were talking about carpooling, saving money and gas. Parking can be a huge saving that way if you're taking
Yes.
transit. And, you can take some time to see the scenery out the window when you're not driving. So explore new areas.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing to remember when you're using public transportation is keep in mind the time,
Yeah.
right? Don't let the time get
Mm,
away from you. You know what? There's just one more. I'm just going to go get one more.
Yeah. Oh,
And
the
then
last
you
bus
miss
left
just
10
one
minutes
more.
ago.
and then you miss the last bus. Now it gets expensive to get home. So,
Or you take up night caching.
yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. There you go.
All night caching.
Yes.
Oh, too funny.
Oh, so yeah, just when you're relying on public transportation, be extra cautious of the time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we are being extra cautious about our podcast time tonight, I'll jump to the next topic here, which is how to find places other than caching through the night in the forest, other ways that you can save some time on your lodging. Camping is
Mhm.
definitely a good option. Staying
Mhm.
in budget hotels, if you can find them. I saw earlier in the chat, and I can't remember, it was very early on the show. I can't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned Airbnbs,
Yeah.
Yes.
particularly if you're traveling as a group. Done that a number of times. For example, my last road trip that Mrs. Monkey and I were just on, sometimes you can get last minute Airbnb deals. There you go. It was DSM times two. Thank you, Scott. Travel with friends and share expenses. Airbnb works well with groups. It does, absolutely. And sometimes, if you're, so for us, what happened? Easter long weekend, you think, oh, prices are cranked everywhere on the Easter long
Mhm.
weekend. We were in Spokane. We're like, well, we slept in the Jeep the previous couple nights. We want a place where we can grab a shower and what have
Mhm.
you. So I looked on the Expedia app and was like, okay, well, that's about what the prices on the hotels are. That's not really that cheap today. And then I flipped open Airbnb, and there was a Airbnb that was way cheaper than any of the hotels. It was a basement suite Airbnb. I was like,
Good enough.
perfect. And it was like, it was underpriced any of the hotels, and we ended up staying there. Highly recommend. Beautiful little location, nice neighborhood. Had a quiet, wonderful evening. So just install the apps, check your options.
Yes.
Mhm.
You never know what you might be able to find.
And some of those last minute deals, you didn't plan ahead, but you're looking for a place to stay. They're looking to fill the room, whether it be an
Yeah.
Airbnb or hotel. So they
Yep,
can give you great prices.
for sure.
Um, you know, Dora Moore says, make a lot of geocaching friends in other places and invite yourself to stay with them for a couple of days
Mhm.
and return the favor, of
And
course.
return the favor. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good.
I have a couch.
There you go.
Couch
There you
surfing.
go.
And you have friends.
Yeah. On the
Um,
Airbnb note, some who's it, Limax said I'm a bit leery these days based on stories I've heard. I was going to say, Airbnbs can be great. I've had some great
mhm.
Airbnb experiences, but lately there've been a lot of things going on with fees and whatnot. So make sure you're looking at the total fee. It's like, gee, that looks like a great price per night, but there are hidden cleaning fees and whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. The cleaning fees lately have been
Yeah.
Ever
ridiculous.
since COVID, there can be some very high cleaning fees that get added in. So
Yes.
again, yeah, good point,
And
Jim.
list of
Look at
rules.
the total price
Mhm.
and the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The host wants you to take out all the trash, scrub all the toilets, and wash the sheets, and then pay a cleaning fee. But that's a whole nother show.
Indeed.
If you're staying in a hotel or Airbnb, make sure they have a refrigerator and microwave
Mhm.
Ah,
because that can help you save on food costs.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
eating out
Food-
is not cheap.
Eating out is
Right.
not cheap. Yeah, it's way cheaper to grab something and nuke it in a microwave. Take some microwave popcorn. You can get a whole case at Costco. Sold. I have made a meal out of popcorn many a times. And if you do hit the restaurants, good grief. Restaurants, the meals there are not single serving size, in my opinion. Just saying. I can't tell you how many years that I've been traveling people that if you know somebody that you know and trust well enough to share a meal, it's a good deal. There's usually enough food for two, and you're only paying for one meal that way.
Wow. Land Monkey is just overwhelmed. Just ripped off his headphones with that. Seabeck Tribe says, when we first started, we had 5 of us, and we brought our lunches and had a picnic so the youngest could run around. It was much cheaper than going to a restaurant. We grilled hamburgers and hot dogs.
Nice.
Yeah, it's always good.
That sounds like fun.
Somebody else said to hit the store before you leave and bring food with you.
Well,
here you go.
Yes, except and so it's Keats. If you can, grocery shopping on a road trip can save more money than eating at fast food places overall. Absolutely. Bring a cooler. The one thing I was going to say is if you're crossing the border between Canada and the US on your road trip, then it's easier. And I think this is maybe what he's getting at is do the grocery shopping, particularly if you're getting fruits and vegetables and such. Once you're across the border, and then consume what you bought, and then you're good.
Yeah.
So I agree with him. If you can purchase food at a store rather than a restaurant, it's less expensive.
Yeah. On this, the theme of tonight's show, I won't take up more time because I know we're getting really tight here, but I'll throw out a hashtag FATAS topic, talking about sleeping in our Jeep. I did some recent modifications to the Jeep that made it a little easier to sleep in, and it worked quite well. So I'll be happy to share about that.
I just saw, we're bringing that up now, apparently. Costco has an SUV tent that goes over the back of the SUV and a tent. So including a mattress and the whole bit, $300. So that's a couple of nights in a hotel room.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's not even a couple of nights in a lot of hotels. It's like a night and a half.
Yeah. Quads in the Mud has thrown out a lot of good comments. We're not going to get to all of them. He says we travel in September because it's some of the cheapest travel times. Europe was half the cost of summertime. So
yeah, good tips.
Dora Morse is the same thing. Yeah. Travel off season when it's cheaper and less muggly. I don't know if that's an official term, but I like it.
It is now.
Yeah. I think Dormore also was the one that said, get to know friends in other places. And one great way to get to know other geocachers is to hit the events. Geocaching events are free to attend. And there's often lots of free activities in your area. You can meet other cachers. You can, pick their brain on a cache you've been stumped on, learn some new geocaching skills, discover somebody else's favorite caches, and get some great tips. So
for sure.
Genice says, if doing hotels, make sure they have a free breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's one less meal you're paying for.
There you go.
Love it.
And then you get to use the pancake machine or the waffle machine.
Or the waffle
machine's fun.
The pancake machine is a little, conveyor belt.
It is.
Or it's like, oh, look at this. It's just flopping out pancakes.
The waffle machine's the thing. You flip it around and then wait for 30 seconds and it screams at you.
It's like 2.5 minutes.
The shrill ear-splitting scream when it's done.
Then do you leave it open or do you turn it back? Because I turned it back and started the timer off again. Like,
whoops.
Right. Now I got to wait 2.5 minutes.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I was being helpful. Let's see.
I think we've run the clock out, but a lot of good stuff here.
Limax and I have the same situation. Off season is difficult when your partner is a teacher.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? We don't get to travel until June, and it gets more expensive.
Well, you just can travel alone in the off season.
Oh, that's true.
And then you get to know couches really well too. Like your own.
When you get back home, right?
Yes.
Folks, thank you so much for all these great tips. We really appreciate it. We had more, but you know what? Maybe we'll have to hit a budget travel 2 and talk about some of the other options we didn't cover because, we talk more than just travel, but that's really where we focus.
Budget travel 2, the end of the trilogy.
Ooh. We're saving money so you don't have to buy budget travel 3.
Nice. Nicely played. All right. Well, folks, we want to take a moment to thank, first of all, Land Sharks and Gold Country Geotourism. Those are our corporate Denali level sponsors. Landsharks.ca is our adventure and geocaching store. Well, it's our. It is a and your an outdoor adventure and geocaching store. I don't think it's ours, but I think I just claimed it for us. Um, check them out online. They're shipping those online orders daily, and I guess watch them for that new geocoin that's coming out there.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. Yeah, a lot of chat about that tonight. That was a lot of fun. And of course, for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com. Download the app. I was getting a sentence ahead of myself there. Download the app, plan your trips to Gold Country. And folks, we want to thank all of our faithful Denali level supporters. It's Landsharks, Gold Country Geotourism, Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cashly, the geocaching app. If you want to know more about supporting this here show, well, why don't you go over and check that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website.
And the first one there happens to be our glow provider, RAR 285.
Let's see. And UDAC.
And Genies.
And Korsgat.
Segehov.
MC3 Cats.
Kev MacD.
B. Pendragon.
Ackerdoc.
And Teus.
Just Carlo, a newer patron. Thank you.
And if you're a spilly drinker, well, you'll have a wet coaster.
And if you're a bird in the sky, you're a skyhawker. That didn't quite work out well. I'll work on it.
Well, if you're a patron, you might be Alarobrick.
And if you like counting things down, you're probably RE5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And if you're traveling, you're probably Limax.
How about Trexer?
And if you're adding lots of great content to the chat, you're Seabeck Tribe.
And if your favorite kitchen appliance, you're the LG 9000.
Also great content from GSM ×2.
And Kitty Quest.
And Logwork.
You Talks to Rocks.
Subway Mark.
The Camp Clan.
CRS 98.
Boomer 365.
Whidbey Island Gal.
Geocaches.
Terrible lunch, great geocacher, gas station tuna.
But it'll save you money.
But it probably will save you money once.
Team Noltex.
Chris hasn't fixed the duplicate bug. Well, thank B. Pendragon again.
Oh, yeah.
And GeoNav Pro.
And Wino Seattle.
J. Carr.
Also contributing a lot to tonight's show, Dora Moore.
And one of my favorite names to say, Just Finding Our Way.
How about Kid Vegas 19?
And we're also going to thank Peach of Washington.
Bronco fan for life.
Green Words.
Flagman.
BC Rock Crawler.
All right. And
Does that one work?
Yeah, that works. I was
Just going to do that for every name now?
Maybe, yeah. I have to break it into 4
B.
syllables.
Pendragon was mentioned twice, so it's just twice the responsibility on you. I'm sorry. You got to step up and do double duty here.
Sorry about your luck.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I'm supposed to say something, aren't I?
I
Hey,
think
folks,
it's up to you now.
thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest and for all the great chat. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. If you like the show, click the Patreon link on the cachingndw.com website. Wow, it is difficult to talk sometimes. If you didn't like the show, probably because we couldn't get out what we really wanted to say, tell us what you want us to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give us a review. Now, if you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in an audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. You can also call into 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask a question, or help us with gas money any time of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingndw.com. Join us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show. And as you proved tonight, livelier chat. The show's produced by Chris Humfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, Jay Kennedy, and Brian Lang. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2023 by Chris Humfenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for...
Oh.
sorry.
The after show.
I was wondering if that's the
Oh.
underwhelming after show. Oh,
Oh.
Had that channel muted.
oh, that was too funny.
Oh.
Oh, what do we got going on here? All right, we got some podcast drinking here. Let's start with that. Subway Mark, he's podcast drinking Smithwicks.
Mm.
Mr. Landsharks is podcast drinking Redbreast Irish whiskey. I'm not familiar with that one. That sounds good. Did we have any more podcast drinkings? I think that was it.
There was some podcast
Oh,
baking.
there's some podcast baking.
B. Pendragon baked a loaf of beer bread. That's why we said twice his
Well,
name.
that's what it was.
There you go. It's kind of like podcast drinking and podcast baking.
Oh yeah. Podcast drink baking.
Kitty Quest is still eating Easter candy.
Try that again.
No?
Try your name again.
Kitty Quest.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Is still eating Easter candy. The bunny was overly generous to their house this year. There you go. Very nice. All right. And we're into the fitasses. All right. So we had a couple of budget ones we didn't get to. Quads in the Mud said expand your radius for the airport you fly into. It says if Woodstock goes giga, I'm flying into Chicago and driving down. Tickets were I see.
Yeah.
So if you've got he's saying if you've got a destination you're heading towards,
Yeah.
sort of expand the radius you're going to cache, pick up your rental vehicle,
Mhm.
and then you've got a little more caching time getting to your chosen destination.
Yeah.
That
And a
makes
lot
sense.
more caching money.
Yeah.
We did that when we went to Gigastock, the Geo Woodstock in
Mhm.
Cincinnati, and we actually flew into Toronto, picked up a rental car, and did a big loop around the Great Lakes. Got a bunch of states that we didn't have previously, and picked up and I had a great adventure. That included that Geo Woodstock. So
Depending on where you live, you can also depart from a different city. Maybe a 2-hour drive one direction might save you a lot of money to fly out of a different city.
Like a Seattle to Portland option here.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And look at some of the one-way specials. Sometimes you can, if you like you said there, Wits End, traveling to another city makes a big difference.
Especially if you're traveling within Canada by air, because generally it's crazy expensive to cross our country by air. It's almost cheaper to drive across.
Yeah. And you're going to get better deals out of bigger cities than the smaller towns.
Yeah. Another one from Quads in the Mud, another budget tip. He says, I book all my flights with points and book as soon as I think there's a chance I'm going. And if it doesn't happen, I can cancel and get all my points back. The earlier you book, the cheaper it is. So
Nice.
more great tips from Quads in the Mud.
That's good.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have enough points. The last couple of flights I booked, I paid for and then canceled and didn't get any money out of it.
Keats
paying to not
94 had
travel.
similar advice. Says if flying, book as much in advance as you can. He flew to Cape Breton and back on 670. Had I booked a month before departure, 1,000 to almost 2,000 in airfare. Yeah, and as he said, domestic flights in Canada suck, and for pricing, yes, they do. Now there's a couple of discount airlines in Canada now, but they only do like the really major cities like Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, and that's about all you're going to get. So if you're trying to get to the Maritimes, there's not a good inexpensive option, unfortunately, unless some crazy deal happens to pop up. But getting to anywhere outside of like Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal, you're kind of hosed in Canada when it comes to flights.
Yeah,
Is it the same in the States? Is it like there's like just a handful of cities, like hub cities, and then other than that? Okay.
It depends. And it depends on the airline. I mean, like you said, hub cities, certain airlines. In Delta, I think you're always flying through Atlanta, even if you're flying across the West Coast.
Yeah, you could go from Seattle to LA and fly through Atlanta. And you're like, how is this saving any money?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because they're deadheading the plane or something.
Exactly. Yeah. There, all the flights go in and out of Atlanta. So you're going in there, catching a flight out. And, hopefully they're filling up the flights enough to make them profitable. I assume they know what they're doing. It's just inconvenient for me.
Right.
So they obviously aren't
And it's all about you.
GSM times 2 has another budget tip. There should be a lot of good used GPSR units available as people transition to cell phones.
Yeah.
In theory, yeah. Limax had one there. Talking about the apps.
Mhm.
I got Piffle Bear set up on the official app on Android and then paid for her first year of premium membership because of the restrictions. So it didn't cost her much. There you go.
Right. And, $30 a year, that's not a lot of money to go premium. Make sure you like it. Make sure it's something you think you're going to do.
Yeah. Just a couple of bucks a month. It's a cup of coffee each month.
That's right. For a cup of coffee a month, you.
Right? I was just thinking
geocache.
It's only 8 cents a day, right?
something like that. I don't know.
Ooh.
You're faster on the maths than I am.
Let's see. Oh, going back to how many caches you have already this month. Seaback Tribe has 83. The app tells you the stats and they'll tell you how much you've gotten for the month. Nice.
Really? The official app will tell you that? No, I'm going to look. I didn't
Okay.
know it did
While
that.
you're doing that, I'm going to talk about Wet Coaster. He submitted their first path tag order, just waiting to see how they turned out.
Nice.
They're going
Nice.
to turn out great.
Absolutely.
And you need to send us one.
That's awesome. Wet Coaster, congrats.
I know another listener who just got their first path tags. My Max. Keats says you can't book discount airlines with layovers. You have to be direct. You can't easily fly from one side of Canada to the other with
Right.
either swoop or flare. Well, if I'm going to fly, I want to fly with flare.
You would think.
Make sure you have enough pieces of flare.
That's right.
Well, it all depends on if you want your luggage or not.
Quad says fly to the US and then drive up into Canada.
Fly to US, then drive up. Yeah. Oh, I see what he's saying. Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and definitely, yeah, up around here, you could get to Bellingham Airport and head east, and then it's a good option.
Jay, hit profile. Hit profile.
I did. I hit profile, and I'm looking at it, and I've got.
I was wrong about Limax. It was the second path tag.
I mean, there's a wheel of challenges thing right at the top, but all it does is take you into like their blog page thing. It doesn't give me any stats.
Okay. We're going to do two more and then we're done. First one from GSM times 2 says Woodstock will not be a giga this year. We've passed the cutoff date with less than 1,300 will attends.
Oh, bummer. That's too bad.
And Wet Coaster says, what do you tell the border guards when you're just going geocaching for the day?
I tell them
I'm
exactly
going
that.
geocaching. Yeah.
I'm going geocaching for the day.
I do it all the time when I'm crossing the border back and forth. I cross the border a lot. And sometimes I have to spend an extra 15, 20 seconds explaining what geocaching is, but usually not an issue.
Yeah, don't make up stories. It's not worth it.
No.
Because, as soon as you hesitate, they know something's up. They're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of people a day. And it's obvious when you're not telling the truth. So just tell the truth. Hey, I'm going geocaching for the day. Yes, I'm here to smuggle some apples across the border.
Apple smuggler.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
My first trip over the border
yeah.
to geocache, what I think was back when we did the Doramore's games.
Oh
And
yeah.
I remember going over there, and the agent says, "And what's your friend?" So I'm going geocache with some friends, and they said, "And how do you know these friends?" I said, "I geocache with them." I mean, it's kind of circular reasoning here, but what,
No, there was a crossing guard. I'm sorry, that was this so wrong term. There was a border crossing officer,
crossing
agent
who went through a list of things you're not supposed to have and did it so fast. It was just funny. I giggled. I said, can you do that again? Do you have any of those things? No, I don't have any of those things. So anyway, folks, thank you for joining us on this. We didn't budget time, but hopefully we saved you a little money.
There you go.
So get out and get caching in the Northwest.